The vast Australian outback, a tapestry of ancient landscapes and vibrant cultures, bears a scar that time cannot erase. Maralinga, a name synonymous with nuclear testing and its devastating legacy, stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of Cold War ambitions. From 1956 to 1963, the British government, with the complicity of its Australian counterpart, conducted a series of nuclear tests in this remote part of South Australia. These tests, shrouded in secrecy and marred by disregard for the indigenous inhabitants and the environment, continue to cast a long shadow over Australia's history. The story of Maralinga is one of betrayal, resilience, and the ongoing struggle for justice. It is a story that must be told and retold, ensuring that the lessons learned from this dark chapter are never forgotten. This essay will delve into the history of the Maralinga nuclear tests, examining their impact on indigenous communities, military personnel, and the environment. It will also explore the cover-ups, the eventual exposure of the truth, and the ongoing fight for compensation and recognition. By understanding the past, we can strive for a future where such injustices are never repeated. The seeds of the Maralinga tragedy were sown in 1951 when Australian Prime Minister Robert Menzies granted permission to the British government to conduct nuclear tests on Australian soil. Driven by Cold War anxieties and the desire to maintain its status as a nuclear power, Britain sought a remote location for its tests. Australia, eager to strengthen its ties with its former colonial master and secure a place in the post-war world order, readily agreed. This decision, made without consulting the traditional owners of the land, the Pitjantjatjara and Yankunytjatjara people, would have devastating consequences for generations to come. Construction of the Maralinga test site began in 1954, and by 1956 it had become the primary location for British nuclear testing. Between 1956 and 1963, 7 major atomic bombs were detonated at Maralinga, along with hundreds of smaller minor trials. These tests, shrouded in secrecy, released deadly radioactive fallout into the atmosphere, contaminating the land, water, and people. The Maralinga nuclear tests were conducted under 2 main operations: Operation Buffalo in 1956 and Operation Antler in 1957. Each operation involved a series of tests, each with its own chilling code name. Operation Buffalo, the first series of tests, included detonations like One Tree, Marku, and Kite. Operation Antler, conducted the following year, involved tests such as Breakaway, Tarje, Biak, and Taranaki. These tests, designed to study the effects of nuclear weapons in different scenarios, unleashed unimaginable forces upon the pristine desert landscape. The impact of these detonations was felt far beyond the immediate test site. Maralinga was not the only site in Australia to bear the brunt of British nuclear testing. Before Maralinga, the British government had already conducted tests at other locations, including the Montebello Islands off the coast of Western Australia and the Emu Field in South Australia. The first British atomic bomb was detonated on Trimui Island in the Montebello Islands on October 3, 1952. These tests, like those at Maralinga, were conducted with little regard for the long-term environmental and health consequences. The legacy of these tests continues to haunt many Australians, particularly Indigenous communities who were disproportionately affected by the fallout. Section 5. The human cost Indigenous communities bear the brunt. The true victims of the Maralinga nuclear tests were the traditional owners of the land, the Pitjantjatjara and Yankunytjatjara people. Their lives were irrevocably altered by the tests, which contaminated their traditional lands, disrupted their way of life, and caused long-term health problems. Forced relocations, a common tactic employed by the Australian government at the time, uprooted entire communities from their ancestral homes. The health impacts of the Maralinga tests on Indigenous communities were devastating. Many people suffered from radiation sickness with symptoms like vomiting, diarrhea, skin rashes, sore eyes, and blindness. Yami Lester, a Yankunytjatjara elder, became a powerful advocate for justice after being blinded by the fallout. The pom-pom incident in May 1957 tragically illustrated the government's disregard for indigenous lives. The Milpudi family, a group of Anangu people, was found camping near a bomb crater, unknowingly exposed to high levels of radiation. This incident, kept secret for nearly 30 years, exposed the failure to adequately protect indigenous communities from the dangers of the tests. Section 6. The Invisible Casualties, Military Personnel and the Fallout Legacy. While indigenous communities bore the brunt of the Maralinga tests, they were not the only victims. Military personnel, both Australian and British, were also exposed to dangerous levels of radiation. Many of these servicemen were involved in tasks that brought them into direct contact with radioactive materials, often without adequate protective gear. The HMS Diana incident in June 1956 is a chilling example of the callous disregard for the well-being of servicemen. The crew of the ship was deliberately exposed to fallout from the Mosaic G2 test to collect data on the effects of radiation on humans. Many of these sailors later suffered from cancer and other radiation-related illnesses. Section 7. Unveiling the truth, from cover-up to exposure. For decades, the Australian and British governments denied, ignored and covered up the true extent of the Maralinga disaster. The health dangers faced by indigenous communities and military personnel were downplayed, and information about the tests was kept secret. However, the truth could not be silenced forever. Journalists like Susie Boniface played a crucial role in bringing the Maralinga scandal to light. Boniface's investigations, published in 2022, revealed the shocking extent of the cover-up and the ongoing health problems faced by those affected by the tests. The 1984 McClelland Royal Commission, established to investigate the British nuclear tests in Australia, exposed the negligence and inadequate safety measures that had put so many lives at risk. The Commission's findings sent shockwaves through Australia, forcing the government to acknowledge the devastating legacy of Maralinga. Section 8. Maralinga Today. A landscape transformed, a history remembered. Today, the Maralinga Tjarutja lands have been returned to their traditional owners, but the scars of the past run deep. The landscape, once pristine and teeming with life, bears the physical and radioactive remnants of the nuclear tests. Yet, from the ashes of this tragedy, a spirit of resilience and remembrance has emerged. Guided tours now offer a glimpse into the history of Maralinga, allowing visitors to learn about the tests, their impact, and the ongoing process of healing. The Maralinga Village campground provides basic accommodation for those wishing to spend more time reflecting on this poignant site. The on-site museum houses a collection of memorabilia, photographs and videos that tell the story of Maralinga and its people. Section 9. Conclusion. Seeking justice. Preserving memory. The Maralinga nuclear tests stand as a stark reminder of the human cost of political ambition and the devastating consequences of disregarding the rights of indigenous peoples. While the Australian government has taken steps to acknowledge the wrongs of the past, including offering compensation and apologies, the fight for justice continues. The legacy of Maralinga is a shared responsibility. It is a reminder of the importance of truth-telling, reconciliation, and the ongoing pursuit of justice for all those affected by this dark chapter in Australian history. By remembering Maralinga, we honour the resilience of those who suffered and strive to create a future where such injustices are never repeated.